Welcome to episode 221 of Littleroot Lessons. This is the weirdest day that we've ever recorded on, and because it's a Thursday, before LA regionals, and yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
It's different for sure. So we had to improvise to figure out what we're going to talk about because tournament coverage is easy, but everything else is not so easy to think of sometimes. So
Yeah. So if you're listening to this on Monday, wondering, hey, what are Jay, Rowe, and Carter? You know, when he shows up, what do they think of the LA teams? What we think is that they were probably really neat, and since it's an American event, very hyper offensive.
Yeah, congrats to the Origin Form Dialga guy who day 2'd. That's awesome.
Shout out to Jess, winning her only event of the season and getting her Worlds invite there, like right then and there. So shout out to her when she wins the event. But since we don't have those teams and all we're doing is just telling you what will happen, we're also going to talk about what has happened in the past and revisit another tier list. Last week, we revisited where our restricted Pokemon were. And the restricted slot is just one of the 6 Pokemon that you're bringing. The other 5 Pokemon are insanely important. Everyone needs to bring their, be their part, do their part. Words are very difficult on a Thursday night. So we are going to go over... one moment. Where are you? I literally just had it up.
Man, we are really struggling on a Thursday night tonight.
It's not. It just let it. Oh man, I'm gonna try this again. It let me share it when I was testing it, and now it's not letting me share it. Give me a moment. Nope, not that. Carl, if you want to edit this out or leave it in and just make us look. Actually, this cold open like this, and of course it doesn't.
Man.
Wait. There we go. Perfect.
There
we
is.
Go. Awesome. Thank God.
Hooray! We figured it out.
Woo! Oh God, I'm an adult who makes real money and real decisions sometimes. So what we have here is where a lot of our non-restricteds were when we discussed this about a month ago with Carter, and let's just dive into just re-ranking everything. Or at least just discussing where things are. And as you could see, I added a new tier, an SS tier, a special tier.
I like it.
It stands for 70 serpent or percent with a silent S in usage. Incineroar is... I think the craziest part of Incineroar is the fact that every single non dog restricted, relevant restricted mon is using holds clear amulet, and it just doesn't matter.
It doesn't. I don't like it. It's hard to comprehend, but its toolkit is just that good, especially when you give it knockoff. So those clear amulets, they help you for one turn. And then turn 2, you're able to get a nice little parting shot off. I think, typing wise, it has just such a good matchup into everything, just about. So yeah, Incineroar doesn't need to be talked about too much.
No, I will say I do think the interesting aspect of it is that we've seen a drop in single attack with just knockoff. We've seen a drop in Flare Blitz. And we've seen an increase in more tech moves such as Taunt, and especially now Will-O-Wisp. And with the Will-O-Wisp, you're still handling those Clear Amulet Mons immediately, unless they go Terra Fire. And and a lot of the times, if you're forcing a Terra to a specific Mon, you're able to make your game planning a lot more linear into that forced Terra. Now,
and it feels like Koraidon is the only real Fire Terra restricted mon too, so pick your matchup, and Will-O-Wisp has been extremely good. It wins you the Calyrex Ice matchup in a lot of occasions. It strongly improves your Zamazenta matchup as well. So I'm waiting until we start seeing Helping Hand Incineroar pop up.
So I've seen it a little in Regulation F A few new like my USPA players were using it, and not an Incineroar, but Pengy did run Helping Hand Groudon at Balance Patch on Sunday. So we are figuring out fun ways to use Helping Hand. A Pokemon that whose hands are usually holding drumsticks. The other S tier Pokemon that we had is Rillaboom, the other of the two Fake Out Bros. I'm not. So Rilla's weird because like I could definitely see why I know why we put it S tier at first. Except I'm not sure if it's S or A now. It's an amazing balance piece. It does super well next to Pokemon like Koraidon. It's a great tech against the Miraidon teams, which when we made this tier list, we thought Miraidon was a B tier mon and not a top end meta threat. So I think right now, if we're having like a special SS tier that is really just the Incineroar tier, I don't care. I don't mind keeping Rillaboom at S.
I agree. I think the utility that you get from Fake Out, it has good pivoting and U-turn. Grassy Glide with priority is just incredible to have and is really, really strong into so many different matchups. It helps against Terrapagos because you're able to break Terra Shell. It helps into Kyogre because you're forcing Terra, or you're basically one-shotting them most occasions.
Yeah.
It has so many great tools at its disposal with the Assault Vest or the Choice Band, as we've seen running around recently. Even the Grassy Plate or Mystical Seed or all Miracle Seed. One of the M words. It's all like it has so many viable sets right now as well. I'm A-okay keeping it in S. Even if we didn't have the extra tier, I think that it would be fine up there.
Yeah. Another item that has been thrown around as an option is if you aren't running the Clear Amulet on your physical restricted, Clear Amulet on Rillaboom as well, I think could be super useful. Stopping the opposing Incineroar from Intimidate spamming you and doing like 252 Adamant and seeing where that high horsepower gets you. Maybe you can threaten the Incineroar, you can definitely threaten the Miraidon. And I'd say the other Pokemon that we're moving up to S tier, Raging Bolt.
Absolutely.
This mon's dumb. What were they thinking?
They gave it like stats comparable to Lunala.
Yeah.
It has Miraidon's typing with electric type priority and the ability to just boost its special attack on switching with booster energy or in Sun.
Yeah, and then you throw it. It has, or it could just use like you have the Calm Mind set, the utility of the Assault Vest set with Snarl, which is an amazing, like the Snarl Assault Vest is an amazing tech into opposing Miraidon. The specs, the choice specs, Terrapagos and like really like the non-covert cloak or Clamulet Terrapagos are going to really suffer against an AV Snarl Raging Bolt. Like this Pokemon can do a lot of great things, along with just Threaten Thunderclap straight into Kyogre.
Yeah, and it gets Electro Web too, which is another great tech move that I've seen occasionally. Not as much on it as of late, but still something that's really great to think about, especially on like an Assault Vest set. I also like that there's been a switch in its Terra from Terra Fairy to much more Terra Electric.
Yeah.
But still running that dragon coverage so that you can, not just be relying on your electric type moves, especially with so much random Terra Ground kind of running around with Miraidon's prominence. I don't know why you guys put this in A tier to begin with. I think y'all are crazy.
I think it's because, especially at the time, it was like high A. I think we had it as like the top A tier mon. At the time, we just thought Rillaboom, Incin, because like back when we were doing this, that's when like Rillaboom, Incin, Terrapagos with lefties or Covert Cloak, and of course like Rillaboom, Incin, Cali S. Those were the two huge teams. Like really, it's like at the point we made this, these two Pokemon were on practically everything, while Raging Bolt really wasn't. And then I'd say like once Indie happened, it changed a lot, and I think a lot of them Indie as much as it changed how we view the restricteds, it also changed how we view the non-restricteds. I'd say going for just, again, another mon that we really don't need to talk about too much that's an S tier. Hey, Amoonguss is good in a restricted format.
Look, all 4 of these are balanced pieces.
They are, and it's...
Maybe we're saying something here about how this format is going right now.
Yeah, but like it's also crazy where it's like these 4 are like, oh, they're all balanced pieces, but they're all balanced pieces, most of them being used on hyper offense teams. Which, like, even the Specs Terapagos teams, we need a modicum of defense, slap on an Amoonguss, or slap on like the Incin. These 2 mons alone can at least give your team a defensive backbone, even if everything else is like insanely offensive.
Yeah, redirection, healing, like surprisingly decent special attacking stats as well. Like it's able to do some decent damage. Also, I believe it gets foul play, which is something that we could potentially see a little bit more often as like that 4th tech move, maybe over Sludge Bomb, since Ogerpon is not as prominent this format. Something like foul play that can do a lot of really great damage to Calyrex Ice and Trick Room would be potentially a cool tech. But like, yeah, I mean, the standard idea of Amoonguss has always been just put things to sleep, do great redirection stuff and support your teammates.
Pollen Puff.
Heal them up unless your name is Dialga or Palkia and have telepathy, because you can't do that, by the way. Learned that one the hard way a couple times. But yeah.
You can Helping Hand though, right?
Yes, you can do. It's just you can't use moves that hit into the opponent. I mean, into the target, your partner Pokemon. So like Pollen Puff fails. Any Earthquake doesn't do damage to it. It's so cool, that ability, but it also stinks that Pollen Puff fails.
Yeah, because Pollen Puff would be like, honestly, like Pollen Puff. If you were able to do the Pollen Puff into it, that would be so much better. Like, that would be insane.
That was the whole concept. I was running like Amoonguss, Dialga Origin with Ursaluna, and just like stick them together, click Pollen Puff into it, and then I realized, I was like, oh, that doesn't work. Maybe I should have thought about that a little harder.
Yeah.
But yeah, Amoonguss, it's great. No surprise.
No, you did bring up Ogerpon, and I think we did have them in A. I think they have dropped to the B tier. I will say, so this bottom column here, like Pokemon that we wanted to, or at least I thought when I was putting this together, like what we didn't talk about last time that we do want to discuss. Out of the 3 Ogerpons, Rockpon is the one that has the regional win. And not only that, but it was also featured on Suika's second place team in Stockholm. It was the Specs Terapagos with Torn, Chiyu, Rockpon, Amoonguss, and I want to say the last was Flutter. And so it's one of the nice things with Ogerpon Cornerstone is that on these super hyper offensive teams, we saw it again with the Chiyu, Torn, Specs Terapagos, Tailwind team, or of course Rajan's team with the Whimsicott and Miraidon, like again, super heavy offense. You don't have a lot of defensive tools to switch in, so having a mon with Sturdy and pretty much having another built-in Focus Sash, Ogerpon's able to just switch in and be that defensive piece, regardless. Like that's honestly type neutral. It doesn't matter whether it's resisting the hit or if it's super effective. You're going to live on that Sturdy.
Mm-hmm. And more than any of its other results, it won UDL last season. So
it also won UDL last season.
It obviously...
That's why I put it next to another UDL champion, Goldango. See?
Hell yeah.
Thinking.
Hell yeah. Every time we talk about Rockpon, I have to bring it up. It's just, it's rule of thumb now.
Well, it's a mix of that and me just going full blown like archaeologist for 60 minutes back in February.
I have been saying that I think that this has been very underrated, and it's finally having its moment with such a hyper-offensive format. Like you said, you put it on your hyper-offensive teams, you have these 2 options to switch in normally because you're running 2 Focus Sash users and survive a hit when when you lead it, it works really well next to Farigiraf in order to not be faked out, and then also get a Trick Room so that you can support your Blood Moon mode. Rock type damage is really, really good, especially when it crits, at like 20-30% of the time.
Yeah.
And is 100% accurate.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And it's coming off a Pokemon that's base it's 178 speed when you go max speed. So it outspeeds a lot of the format as well. I think that because of its longevity and its ability to stay on the field without additional support, it's really taken that extra step over the other Ogerpon forms. But I don't think that necessarily makes Hearthflame and Wellspring bad.
Yeah. So I will say, you bring up Farigiraf, I was looking at this, and like, I know I forgot one Pokemon.
You guys didn't even rank Farigiraf? Oh my
gosh. No, so we did rank Farigiraf. This is I recreated it using a different tier list maker because the other one was missing a few Pokemon, and I did this I did it right before I went to the gym, and I was like, I'm missing something. It's fine. I'll probably remember it at some point. Farigiraf's 8. We'll get to Farigiraf later. So I'll start with Waterpon. Everyone thought this was going to be another amazing answer into Kyogre. The issue is with when Kyogre goes Terra Grass, it turns into a situation of they aren't hitting you, but you also really aren't hitting them. And after a while, it does enough, but not enough at the same time. It kind of like is just there. Mm-hmm. And like water types in general, both Urshifu forms are A tier, but it's not like Waterfu is the predominant water type threat as it was at like such a big part of last season.
Yeah.
Firepon, on the other hand, so Chris, Bren, and I, Hush, after Indy, we were like, hey, let's try to like do some innovation on this Miraidon team. And the innovation we actually had was running Ogerpon Heartflame over Cornerstone. And the idea of it, specifically just calling meta trends, we expected the Steel type in Zamazenta to become more popular than it was. And we also expected more Terra Grass Mons, more Rillaboom, and maybe even Pokemon like Ting-Lu to try to counter the Miraidon play. And Heartflame Ogerpon punishes all of those Pokemon. So I was like doing test matches yesterday, and in my infinite wisdom, using Miraidon, I lost to back-to-back Kyogre teams. Don't know how that happened. And then using a Miraidon team, I went and beat a team that had both Gastrodon and Ting-Lu on it, because Heartflame Ogerpon pretty much was like, oh, I'm going to Woodhammer your entire team. And the Mons I'm not Woodhammering, I'm using +1 Terrafire Ivy Cudgel against. This Pokemon can still run through teams that are unprepared when you're in Tailwind, or depending on where the speeds are at, you might not even need the Tailwind to outspeed your opponents. It's a really great Pokemon. I think it should see more play, and it might start seeing more play as people start to adjust to counteract against the more grass types that are trying to pop up and counter the Miraidon teams.
Yeah, I think the big thing with both the Ogerpons, just talking about them separately for a second, with Wellspring, your main focus with it is, like, your main tool is to Terra Water and then get that special defense boost, which unfortunately isn't helping you against one of the best special attackers in the format, Miraidon, and Raging Bolt as well.
It's also not helping you against Terapagos, because yes, you're going and getting +1 on the special attack on the special defense, but now since your Terra Starstorm hits you super effective. Yeah. So you get the +1, you also double, like, sure, you get the +1 and then you double the damage that you're getting that is going into you. You're still losing out.
Yeah. And also, just like as a combination, I don't think that Hearthflame has that issue as much because it gets its attack boost and it gets to do a ton of damage. But their speed tier, while I said for Cornerstone it was great, is weird on these two Pokemon because with Cornerstone you have the ability to survive that hit from the big restricted Pokemon, which is normally going to be one of the fastest things on the field. The Zamazentas, the Miraidons, the Koraidons are all super speedy.
Yeah.
So you live that hit, but in terms of the non-restricted Pokemon, Ogerpon is really fast. So it lives that hit and is able to actually do something while it's on the field. While sometimes Hearthflame and Wellspring might struggle to actually get that attack off, get that IV Cudgel off, survive that double hit onslaught from Follow Me to support your restricted next to it. So yeah, I think they're in a weird place, but I think that they're both really, really good. I also was using Hearthflame for a while on my Koraidon team.
Yeah.
And it was extremely strong there.
Oh, this thing in the sun, like it's it's with that the whole like, can you calc for Miraidon? Can you calc for Chiyu? It's like you weren't calcing for Heartflame. That I +1 Terra Ivy Cudgel in the sun is one of those attacks that there isn't a calc for. Just start praying. Like
just hope you have enough bulk.
Yep.
Pray that it rains that day. Like do a rain dance or something.
So like that was the other thing. When I was testing, I was wondering like how much does +1 the +1 heart like Ivy Cudgel do to a Terragrass Kyogre in the rain? And the answer is a lot. You can, even with the rain up, if you +1 Ivy Cudgel into it, you're killing it. In most cases, I think it was like it's your low roll is 98%.
That's actually nuts.
It's absolutely disgusting.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it really, really is. The only thing is you have to have you have to make sure like you at least match your tailwinds depending on how that's going. So you like I want, since we're talking about rain.
Oh my gosh, you're shifting it up that high.
40% usage. It was on the team that it's been on. It won. It won Santiago. It won.
Get over yourself.
I am not. It's a Thursday. We're getting frisky.
I mean, Chi and Pao won Santiago in Stockholm.
Yeah, it's going to get right next to it. It's a little buddy.
You better put it in front of it. Oh my gosh, I swear, Angelo.
Okay.
We can talk about Pelipper 100 times, and I'll always say it that even on those teams, it doesn't feel like incredibly impressive.
I love it.
It's not the one that's carrying. It's not the non-restricted that's carrying. It just needs
look at those like dead, thoughtless. It
just sets the rain, and it just chills.
It looks so stupid, and I love it.
Oh my gosh, it is not. This thing is not the top of A. I'm okay with putting it in A, but like
I think it wasn't A before.
I think Farigiraf is better. I think Fluttermane is better. I think
you want to say
maybe it's okay arguing the Chi-Yu levels just because of the inconsistency. I also think that Urshifu is better. So
I know it's so Urshifu is best friends with the Pelipper because you're able to go do the whole rain thing without, like, you're able to do the immediate rain thing without having to commit your restricted. And it just, a lot of those teams that are going with that Pelipper, with a soft Pelipper mode, also have the ability to throw on a Pokemon like Urshifu. I think one of the other really nice things with Pelipper on the more common Calyrex Ice Balance teams, the ones that you have the Calyrex, Amoonguss, Incin, and then you go Pelipper with Goldango, so the rain is helping both the Goldango and the Calyrex Ice defensively, and then you can throw on something like a Raging Bolt or a Waterfu or even a Darkfu on those teams. They all work out super well. I think it's a Pokemon that just adds a lot of options, and it's just everything in the metagame right now is working well for Pelipper to be a good Pokemon. It is a very splashable Pokemon, much like some of the other ones you mentioned. Farigiraf, the ability to... Farigiraf's one of the main Pokemon that is keeping the Calyrex Shadow usage down, as we projected when we were looking at Umbreon Theorymons. Foul Play is the amazing move for it to use. It's picking up Terra Ground with Terra Blast as not only just a defensive mon, as a mon you can click Discharge next to, but as a way to do that special ground type damage that, unless you're running Landorus, really isn't common, or Landorus or Blood Moon really isn't common in the format, and is able to be another check into the Miraidon, hit Incineroars. And then Xianpao, it's just, again, one of the most splashable Pokemon. You can use it on Koraidon teams, on Kyogre teams, with Groudon, it's been amazing with Zamazenta. It's just always been such an amazing splashable mon. It is a focus sash hog. You can do stuff like Clear Amulet on it. Try that, or be Jamie Boy and run Assault Vest on it. But in most cases, you do want the sash on your Xianpao. Looking at, I think the rest of A tier, they're still A tier. Chi-Yu is
Landorus.
You think? Well, I was going to say, if there's anything, I would say Landorus and B. And
I think Landorus could potentially even be C tier. I think that this thing is super on fraud watch right now. Also, I think Cornerstone is A tier.
Okay,
I know we didn't put it. I think it's A tier.
It's a UDL champion. I'll put it A tier.
Yeah.
It's a UDL champion. It won a regional. It's been consistently good. It's a good mon on good teams. I have no issue with that.
Yeah.
I think
my thing with Landorus is that it's just so bad into so many of these matchups. It doesn't have the speed to beat Choice Scarf Urshifu, to beat Qianpao. It doesn't have the bulk to really, outlive Rillaboom in a lot of occasions. It's not. It's still very good and has some good matchups into a lot of good Pokemon, but I think that the Calyrex Ice usage as well is a really big deterrent for this.
Yeah, so I was going to bring up, I think Landorus, its best role is you're able to hit Zamazenta super effectively, whether with your Earth power, and if they go Terra, they're usually going Terra Grass, you can now threaten with a really powerful Sludge Bomb. The issue is Zamazenta, you can train your Zamazenta to be faster than even a max speed Landorus. It's not going, you can go Terra Poison the Landorus to help you take the Heavy Slam better, but I think you can only take a Heavy Slam or two without any Intimidate support or Burn support. So I see the role it has. If you are playing a team and you're really struggling with Zamazenta, and you have a 5-mon core that you can mix and match and bring into Calyrex Ice, and you're okay with playing 5v6 against Calyrex Ice, give Landorus a shot, and I think that's why it would be a good B tier mon. But it's very, very team dependent, matchup dependent, and in general meta dependent. If Zamazenta drops off or Miraidon drops off, if those do, I could definitely see Landorus's usage or usefulness more than anything dropping as well.
Well, I don't think it's actually all that useful into those matchups either. Into the Zamazenta matchup, it's really
you have to position it.
Yeah, but there's normally on average 2 to 3 Pokemon that can just one-shot it on the other side of the field. There's the Pelipper, which is actually a pretty decent wall into Landorus. The Qianpao, which is gonna one-shot it. It creates a really tough pinch, especially if you're running Terra Steel. And if you're running Terra Poison, a Body Press plus an Icicle Crash is more than likely still going to take you out.
I think the other thing is specifically for the Keanu team, you probably need to Terra to live the +1 grassy, the Banded Grassy Glide, especially if they go Terra Grass. I'm seeing it was always for me a good in theory, probably not great in practice. And the more I see it, yeah, I'm seeing where you're at.
And it's good into Miraidon on that team specifically, but it doesn't actually do very well into like the Ogerpon Cornerstone.
No.
If the Whimsicott catches you in a tough position where you're you lock into a protect or you lock into an earth power or a sludge bomb, they can then use that, encore you into that move and make some defensive plays around it. I don't know. Like, I don't think that Landorus has the matchups. I don't think it has the usage rates either. I think that in a world where like Ogerpon Wellspring, who still is normally in the top 10 of usage, is in B tier, I feel very hard pressed putting Landorus there.
Yeah, look, we can go see. Look, no, you make a really good argument, and it's the fact that we really haven't seen it do well. It's more so like it's done very well in the past few regulations, and we were thinking, okay, where the meta was going, this could be a really good mon. And it was reputation based, but as of right now, it's not as useful. I'd say other Pokemon that I definitely look at dropping: Gouging Fire,
Yeah.
D-Knight, and honestly, I think Hisuian Ursaluna and Gambit, we really like grouping these Pokemon together, just going through them real quickly. Gouging Fire, we thought that was going to be it was a generally great partner for a Pokemon like Groudon, which it probably is, but Groudon has not been seen whatsoever. And the other fire and dragon types just play better. Gouging Fire, the gameplay you're going for, you're looking for those howl setups, and the meta's too fast where you don't really have the time to go and make those setup plays like that, especially like a move like Howl. So it just isn't doing enough. Dragonite is, again, we just aren't seeing it. Dragonite gets nuked by it gets hardwalled by Fergraph, and it gets nuked by a Terra Starstorm or a Draco Meteor, or even like an Electro Drift.
Or a Glacial Lance, or an Icicle Crash.
Yeah. So it's just not there. And Hisuian Ursaluna, we thought we would see it more. I do know, like, Adrian Hurley, one of our New England locals, was running a Miraidon team with the Hisuian Ursaluna over the Blood Moon Ursaluna. But again, I don't think it's gotten enough play and seen enough play where we can put it higher than a C tier as like a more niche Pokemon.
Yeah, with Gouging Fire, I think it really struggles because you want to be able to run something like a Clear Amulet or just another item on it other than the booster energy. Which one you're sharing a lot of times with your physical restricted on that Clear Amulet because you want to run it next to Groudon or Koraidon, which it shares that dragon typing with, shares that fire typing after Terra on the Koraidon, so it kind of doesn't feel like type-wise it fits into that team composition all that well. And I also think that it's a big misser because Zacian has fallen so far as well. It just doesn't have the ability to howl up the Zacian. I think they could work well together, but you're also forcing the booster energy onto it. And yeah, I think it has a role on like a Zacian team. I think it could be really cool on that. But just Zacian not being around, having some pretty poor matchups across the board doesn't help it. And just to add to the Clear Amulet idea, Breaking Swipe doesn't work on those physical restricted Pokemon anymore. It just does 55 base damage, which is spread, so you're doing like 30 or 40 total, base power, and not dropping their stats because Clear Amulet's a thing.
Yeah, and also there's a lot more wide guard where like a Pokemon like Pelipper completely walls out Gouging Fire.
Yep.
So there really isn't a point in using it. As for King Gambit, I think that in a world where we had a more Calyrex Shadow and Cali Ice, like if it was a more horse-centric format, I think it would be a better Pokemon. But the fact that, like, even with an Assault Vest, most things aren't living the Electro Drift. You have Terapagos with you're either terroring and getting hit by the super effective Terra Star Storm, or you're staying as a Steel type and getting hit by either a Specs boosted Earth Power or like a +1/+2 Combine boosted Earth Power, and you aren't getting anything done with it. It's if the format was different, then I think it would be higher. But until we see that Calyrex Shadow return and like solidify itself as a top 3, top 4 restricted mon, I don't think Kingambit's more than the C tier.
Yeah, and it just struggles a lot with Farigiraf being so popular. Like, you want to be clicking Sucker Punch as much as possible,
And you can't.
so that really stinks. And also, it doesn't have the type matchup into Incineroar, which is the best Intimidator in the format. You want to use it to get that boost with Defiant and then start doing lots of damage, but you normally have to run something like Low Kick on it in order to hit it super effectively. And a lot of occasions you want that Black Glasses damage boosting, so you can just start spamming Sucker Punch, start spamming Kowtow Cleave as much as possible. And into the Calyrex Ice matchup, they're running high horsepower a lot of the time, so it's, do you get rid of your Steel typing to then take a Glacial Lance on the next turn, or do you take a high horsepower, which is going to be doing a massive chunk, if not KOing you? I do believe in Kingambit, and I think that it's a good Pokemon. As for the other, 3 Pokemon that we just dropped, especially Ursaluna, I'm a big Ursaluna proponent right now.
Yeah,
I think it's based.
I also think it's. I can't see another team that you would even. And the other part of it was when we were doing this list was where like C tier was also a situation. Like, I'll bring up a Pokemon. Walking Wake is a very powerful Pokemon, but you're not going to see it. You're only going to see it on the Sun teams with Groudon and Koraidon. So part of it is splash. Like, part of this tier is like splashability and accessibility. The Pokemon above it are significantly more splashable, while the Pokemon in C tier are either super matchup dependent, or they only work with one restricted. With the Hisuian Ursaluna, I can't see a world where you play it on a team that isn't a Miraidon team or the Dialga teams. And it is a perfect Dialga partner. And I wouldn't be shocked if when someone really does figure out this is the most optimal like Dialga origin team, it's going to be with Hisuian Ursaluna.
Yeah, for sure.
But until then, it's just a C tier mon. And the other C tier mons like Torkoal, we've only seen like Torkoal, and we can honestly put Torkoal and Gale together. We've only seen them on hard Trick Room teams, and that's really it. As just like another like your super hard like Trick Room Calyrex Ice teams. That's the only time you'll really see them. We already talked about Wake. Archaludon, that's more of a like it's a Kyogre-mon, but we also don't even see it that much on the Kyogre. Like it is a thing, but not as popular.
It takes way too much damage on the special side, Archaludon.
Yeah.
It like takes, even with Assault Vest, like over 50% from Water Spout. It's just not what you want to see.
No. Wo-Chien, that was something where we were like, hey, could this work? And the answer is no.
No, too slow.
Yeah. And with that being said, let's bring up Ting-Lu, the Pokemon that everyone thought was going to save us from Miraidon and then didn't come through. I think it's playable.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the fall of the rise and fall of Ting-Lu is fascinating because in its in the format where it was introduced, it would have been right up here in that S
Facts.
tier. And then for like the second they're like, okay, we brought back Rillaboom and Waterfoo, just plummeted in usage, and it has not recovered at all.
Yeah, I think Tinglu is still super based, but
It's a cool mon.
It's intimidate fodder. It does also play very slow. You're normally, when you're seeing it nowadays, it's with Sandtomb and Yondozo. I think that Tinglu has a lot of promise in its typing and its ability to shut down special attackers. Its ground typing, which is really, really fantastic into Miraidon. Its dark typing, which is really good into Caloric Shadow. But it has a poor Kali Ice matchup. It has a poor Urshifu matchup. It doesn't have
bad Zamazenta matchup.
Bad Zamazenta matchup. Not very good into Rillaboom. Not very good into Amoonguss. Its speed tier is very odd. I think it has potential still, but it's another one of these Pokemon that maybe just play too slow. You're normally doing your most damage with Ruination, which is great turn one, but then from there it just does less and less and less and less damage every single time you click it. So
yeah, no, but I think, like, again, all four of the Ruin Pokemon are definitely like tierable. It's just that the two more defensive ones are definitely the bottom two.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'd say let's talk about some grass Pokemon. We have three different grass types in B and C tier: Whimsicott, Serena, and Hisuian Lilligant. Which I'm just going to put you with the rest of the. None of this is really in order outside of Pelipper. Pelipper actually is that high. But Hisuian Lilligant, it's going with the Hard Trick Room team as the Sun mode with Torkoal. Like, honestly, these three together, if you see one of these three, you're going to see the other two. Serena has been a lot better than I expected in this format.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly used with the Kyogre team, so which is why I think it still stays in C, because I don't think it's as splashable. But what it does for Kyogre is it still gives you not only does it give you the priority dissuasion of a Pokemon like Farigiraf, but the fact that you can have Triple Axle is you're offensively threatening both Rillaboom and Raging Bolt with that Triple Axle. It's a 2-hit KO with that move, and people have been running the wide lens to increase the accuracy of both the Triple Axle and the power whip that it runs. So it's made itself, it's set niche. It's a super useful Pokemon on those teams, except I don't think you can splash it on every single team.
Yeah, it also gets the benefit from the Kyogre teams a lot of the time not having a very clear amulet user, so it can swipe that on. Just say I'm okay with missing moves occasionally. Maybe run like high jump kick on it in order to hit Incineroar really well. Do like a pseudo Mienshao type thing where you're immune to Intimidate, and then you can click the big damaging move and take out Incineroar. But Triple Axle is really massive for it. Like you said, allowing it to hit into Rillaboom, Raging Bolt, Amoonguss, the Dragon type restricted legendaries that are running around, Tornadus and Iron Jugulis and Whimsicott and Ursalunas, and the Ogreponds are all really, really great. It is definitely way too focused on just being on one team. You really will never see this outside of a Kyogre team. Because in those occasions, you probably just want to run for Gref. You're not as worried about having like that grass resist because it's probably somewhere else on the squad. But I do like Serena quite a bit, and those Kyogre teams have always been really threatening. I know in Series 10 I made a whole team based around the core of Tornadus, Kyogre, Serena, and every time I played it, I said, okay, I'm going to click these 2 moves because it covers for every single viable option. I might take a water spout for my trouble, but that's okay.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing with this Mon is it really does, or at least the format, it really does maximize what one of these restricted Mons can do. And another Pokemon that's really just maximizing and just being a general terror to everything is Whimsicott, which is an absolutely unbelievable Tailwind setter. Looking at this, we did not tier Torn. I don't even think we tiered Torn last time.
That's also wild. You guys definitely swung and missed on a couple of them.
Oh no, that was a classic. I'm trying to get everything together.
Yeah, you just missed it.
You're going to go right there. No, I think we had it on the last one, and I messed up for this one.
I think you swap Whimsicott and Tornadus.
Okay.
And just get it over with.
Now, see, this is really funny coming from you because you've always been the Whims is really good until Tornadus is a Pokemon and then it's not. And
yes,
I think we've seen both of them equally. We've seen Whimsicott more with the Miraidon team, and we have seen Tornadus as the option. Tornadus has been an option with Koraidon. It's been an option, of course, with Kyogre, with Terapagos. It's been so like people have been, and of course, like people have been using the Tornadus with Miraidon as well. So I think you like the Whims for the same reason I do, and that's the ability to click Encore.
Yeah, Encore is a fundamentally broken move. It being able to force this counterplay from your opponent to never set up, to never click Protect, because if they do, they're going to get stuck on the field clicking Protect over and over and over again. I also think it's just more consistent in its move choices than Tornadus. Like, if you want a damaging option, go Tornadus. Click Bleakwind Storm. That's great.
Gamble. But
Gamble's you're also going to miss a lot.
You are.
Instead, you can force your opponent to play a very specific way, really enable your restricted Pokemon to do whatever it wants to, whenever it wants to. It is another Focus Sash Hog. It really can't run any other item. But how much better is any of those other items on Tornadus? How much, do you want that Focus Sash elsewhere? Probably not all that much if you're finding that room for Whimsicott. I also just think results-wise, Whimsicott has been there, while Tornadus has kind of fallen off in terms of day 2 and top 8 usage.
It's definitely fallen off in usage. It's gotten some semifinals or finals placements. Hasn't taken it yet. Again, on the Specs Terapagos teams, they really like the Tornadus as an option. But on the other end, we've seen the win, at least this format, with the Whimsicott. Even just typing-wise, like being a fairy is really great, both offensively and defensively in this format. You're able to have a common, not super common, but common-ish restricted Mon in Koraidon be immediately threatened by a little fluff ball, and just the presence of Whimsicott forces that thing to Terra. Because if they don't Terra, then they're going to lose their restricted Mon to a non-restricted support Pokemon's coverage move, which is just absolutely crazy to think of. Tornadus, though, it is on the bulkier side. I think it does give you a slightly better option into Zamazenta, depending on the team that you're running. But at the same time, you can go and Encore the Zamazenta on the Wide Guard turn, on the Iron Defense turn, and just lock that Pokemon in. So the Encore really limiting your opponents of their options is amazing.
Yeah, and just something else interesting about Tornadus is that on our higher performing Kyogre teams of the season, they were actually dropping the Tornadus for Iron Jugulus instead.
Yep. That is something that has been happening. You are correct there.
And so it's just like, even on the teams where it seems like it would fit the best, there's these other options that do its job as well, but also add in an extra little wriggle with Snarl and with, a lot. They feel that they're running Hurricane instead, which Bleakwood Storm is also just fundamentally broken in Rain. It is absolutely cracked, but it doesn't have the ability to pick up Pokemon like Amoonguss. Not saying that Iron Jugulus is better or as good as Tornadus. I do think that Tornadus is still better on that team, but I don't think there's as many applicable alternatives for Whimsicott.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes a sense. With that being said, there were a few. With you bring up Jugulus, there were a few Pokemon that I decided some Paradox Mons to throw into that C tier.
Also, throw Galarian Moltres up there too while you're at it.
Yeah,
you skipped it already.
Yep,
there it is.
So let's talk about some of these restricted Mons. We already talked about the Iron Jugulus. It's a Tailwind setter, usually with the Booster Energy item. What's really nice about it is that it can't be taunted by Prankster Taunt, and also it can't be Encored, which is huge. So you can set your Tailwind and then do other things, not be locked in. Hurricane is a massive amount of damage. We had this discussion last week. Bring up Pelipper, I'll bring it up again. When you're using these supportive Pokemon that really don't have the amazing offensive output or like stat wise, you can you can balance that out by just using very high base power moves. And so slapping on a base 110 accurate move that works with your restricted is a massive boon for Jugulus. The other thing that's really nice is that you are a fast Snarl user, and you're able to use those fast Snarls to mitigate the Miraidon, mitigate the Terapagos, mitigate even Pokemon like make Raging Bolt, other Kyogre, really weaken those Pokemon of their offensive options. And you're also a nice, ground resist, which, immune. Always nice to have.
Yeah.
Hands is super interesting. It works well, so I could see it working as with Miraidon. I could see it on Balancy teams. I saw Sohaib use it at Balance Patch on Sunday with a Zacian Pelipper Balance team, and the main role it's playing with usually with an Assault Vest in this role, is it's your counter into the Miraidon. You're able to really resist it, and you're immediately taking advantage of their own terrain and threatening massive damage back with an Ice Punch or a close combat, a Drain Punch, or a Wild Charge. So it's a super cool mon to use. The other option, item-wise, is Clear Amulet, and if you're using Clear Amulet, you are just going straight offense. You're using close combat, screw healing, you're going to die the next turn anyway, unless you get to pick up the KO. And I think it's not at the VGC 2023, Regulation B, B through E usage, but it's definitely, I think it's better now than it was in Regulation F.
I somewhat agree. I think that the item choice is a big problem for it, because it's either run the Assault Vest so that you can survive the hits that you really want to, or run the Clear Amulet, which helps you in your Incineroar matchup. And I just think that the Incineroar matchup for it is really tough. And that's one of the big issues with this Pokemon. It's also competing for a similar role with Incineroar as being a bulky fake out user. And while Incineroar runs a lot more supporty, this one's a lot more offensive. I think it's an odd place. I don't really love it on the Miraidon teams because you have that overlapping ground weakness, especially in a format where Blood Moon is really running around a lot. And there's, incidental ground type coverage on, a lot of teams now because Miraidon is so important and so prevalent. It's it's unique, and I believe speed ties Calyrex Ice in Trick Room if you're running mid speed. I think so it's another iffy thing about it, and also Hisui and Ursaluna for that matter. I mean, a lot of the Ice Riders will run some speed, but like you also kind of want some speed on this because you want to win the Fake Out Wars if you can. Tough spot for Iron Hands right now.
The team that has seen the most success is we did see a Miraidon team that it was the 6. It was very akin to the team that I forgot the name of. I think it was Nick Donnelly, who came in second place, lost to Wolf using the Tail Room team. So we've seen like it was pretty much Donnelly's team where he used Iron Hands over Incin, except it was with the Miraidon. So I think it was Blood Moon, Farig, Torn, Mirai, Hands, and the 6th was Chiyu. And I think in a team like that where you're going super offense, and at that point, really, what is that's a time where it's like the Incineroar is not giving you as much, so just run the AV Iron Hands or the Clamulate Iron Hands and just really like push into my Fake Out Mon also will be a nuke. And that's just an option specifically for that team. And really, we like looking at this, we haven't really talked about the special, like these major special attackers in Blood Moon and Chiyu. Chiyu is it's a renaissance. We've been talking about Pokemon like Ting Lu, like Hands that haven't been as good since like Reg C. I think this is like they dropped off after Reg C and haven't came back. I think this is the best Chiyu has been since Reg C, since New Balance.
Yeah, it just misses moves a lot.
Love your fish. Just love your fish. Feed it. Give him hug the bowl. Run Flamethrower. Actually, do that. Run Flamethrower.
Don't do that. Just run Heat Wave. Roll the dice. All right. Yeah. You're already running Overheat on it. If you really want to, I guess not miss, then maybe put Flamethrower over Overheat. But I still think you're wrong for doing that.
Yeah.
It does just so much damage. It's still the same old, calc for 252, Choice Specs, Overheat, and Sun with Helping Hand and stuff. Like, you're not going to get all those boosters anymore. Normally, you're seeing this run like Focus Sash, but it's a very key component into the Calyrex Ice matchup, into the Zamazenta matchup. It forces them to bring Pelipper, which is not the best thing in the world because it's a Pelipper. I'll keep saying it until I go to sleep. It's a very strong Mon in this format, and we've seen it running really well. Blood Moon, on the other hand, is just a monster. I mean, it's like Blood Moon Terra Normal with Life Orb is hurting even your resists. It's
throw on some helping hands, or now again next to a Chiyu. So much damage.
Or spam it just with a discharge next to it, and do a casual 50% off the jump, and then follow it up with a Blood Moon or a Hyper Voice. I think that Blood Moon is incredibly, incredibly awesome right now. And the fact that it's actually running a ton of speed investment, most of them are running 252 speed, so that they can fit into the dual mode tail room teams. I love Blood Moon. I would be okay moving Blood Moon up to A. Personally.
Yeah, I have no issue with Blood Moon in A. I think that Blood Moon is one of my favorite Pokemon from this generation, and it's just it's such a amazing partner for of course it's an amazing partner with Miraidon, but it still is a great partner for the Calyrex Ice as well. I can't wait for GS Cup when you can run all 3 of them together on the same team, and that's going to be really fun.
That's going to be an actual nightmare for everyone playing.
I'm going to be an absolute menace. It's going to be one of the best days of my life.
Just hit damage button over.
I will have like 3. I'll have to use like 3 brain cells in the entire tournament. Oh, it's going to be so awesome.
Hit big, strong, spread damage move.
Yeah, it's like calc this. Oh, you calced for 1, but did you calc for 2?
How about 2? Buy one, get one free, baby.
But yeah, no, Blood Moon, it's such a cool Pokemon, and for it to continue to reinvent itself in the teams that it's able to succeed on is super cool. I know we went, I threw on Screamtail. With us talking about Whimsicott made me think of Screamtail. What's really cool with Screamtail is not only does it also have the really fast Encore, but also has an insanely fast Disable as well. With a lot of the special, the special offensive Pokemon having most of them being spec spawns, to be able to go and just click Disable into a Miraidon or into a Terapagos with specs and just stop them in their tracks, it's actually super important and impressive. I just don't think we really know the proper team for it. The people I know who have brought Screamtail, I know Jacob Lintner brought it on their own specs Terapagos team, on the team that they use to get their Worlds invite with, and I've seen other people run like the Combine Terapagos with Screamtail as well to try to like punish people for clicking Fake Out, or like punish them for clicking Taunt and stuff. And I'm just not sure if that's like the best way to use it yet, but it's also the only way I've seen it used. So it's in C tier right now because I think there's definitely a use for it. It's just we're going to have to wait to see where things develop. Now you brought up the Moltres, and I'd love for you to dive into this.
Yeah, I think it fills a very cool role right now. We've seen it mostly on the Zamazenta teams. I think it could be more splashable than just that because of its type matchup into the format and the ability of some of the things it can do. We brought up earlier with Iron Jugulus that its typing allows it to have a natural immunity to Prankster Taunt, so you can use that to comfortably set up Tailwind. And then we're seeing, for the most part, these Black Glasses sets running around with Fiery Wrath and Foul Play, Terra Dark on it, so you can get rid of your Ice-type weakness, and then also just end up basically KOing even Terra Calyrex Ice.
Yeah, you can OHKO Calyrex. If you go Terra Dark with Black Glass Foul Play, it's if they don't Terra defensively, you pick up the knockout.
I'm saying even if they do Terra defensively, I'm pretty sure in a video I was watching recently, it actually does pick up the KO, which is ridiculous. And even if it doesn't, it's still doing a ton.
I'm going to actually pull up.
Pull up the calc. Run this.
I'll run this. So, it's a 2-hit KO.
Oh man!
But like the other thing is,
wait, did you Terra on it?
Yeah, so I Terra.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, it's like, so if they go Terra Water, you're still doing about 59 to 70% damage.
Yeah, and if it's +1 as well, you're under KOing it.
No, actually, so if they go so I have it. I'm just calculating 252 plus Calyrex Ice.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, if they're 252 plus with one moment. Yeah, okay. I was looking at the wrong one. It is a roll. Yeah, no, for some reason the calc threw up. It's like, is your Calyrex using close combat? I'm like, no, it's not.
But
yeah, the fact that you can get a roll on it is super cool.
Yeah, and it has these matchups into Calyrex Shadow, which just kind of works as a plug and place Pokemon into those matchups. We haven't really seen it like perform on stream too much, but I also think that there's other items that could work really well on this thing, like Citrus Berry.
Yeah, the only reason why I'm a little on Citrus Berry is because you want to bring this Pokemon into the Calyrex matchup, and you're going to be the Unnerve is going to stop you from using the berry. But yeah, Citrus Berry is definitely an item that could work. That was like the classic item for it back in Generation 8. Black Glasses is always great. Covert Cloak to stop being faked out, so you can guarantee your Tailwind. Yeah, the fact that it's able to be another like super bulky tailwind setter, because the bulk on this Pokemon, base not like you have base 90, base 90, base 125. You can like this thing can get really, really, really bulky, and I think people really don't think of it that way because the way it was ran in Generation 8, it was an offensive Pokemon. You wanted it fast, you wanted to hit the really hard max darknesses, the really hard max airstreams. So now we're seeing it pretty much remake itself as this mini Yveltal, which is a cool thing for it to do. Two Pokemon I pulled up before we started recording were Clefairy and Volcarona, and we'll tier them after discussing. We'll start with Clefairy first. Both these Pokemon, they're redirectors. Actually, both of them were just used with Terapagos and Santiago on the team that finished 8-0 in Swiss and then top 4 in Cut. I think this little buddy here, I think it's a B tier mon.
I am not as convinced in B tier.
I mean, we can go C. Well,
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it in B, but like, I do think that it fits mostly onto those Terapagos teams. I think that when it's on the field, especially where there's so much spread damage, its follow me utility is not as important. Friend Guard, obviously, fantastic ability, helps your Pokemon's survivability a ton. But when it's not clicking follow me on the field, it feels a little lackluster. Like most of the time, it's probably just clicking helping hand or very weak Moonblasts. I don't know. I don't know where I'm at with Clefairy. I think that I'd like to see it on more teams.
Okay, I mean, we can put it here,
but I'm okay with it being wherever.
Yeah. So so what I was seeing, the two things that I've been seeing it do is I've seen people run it with After You on with Calyrex Shadow, like a very, or even Miraidon. So when you go into the Trick Room, this is your Trick Room answer where you click After You, and your very fast restricted mon is able to still do its thing. Even with the Terapagos, you can do that. And the other thing is using it with Heal Pulse. And being that like people are going to use Amoonguss, part of the appeal for Amoonguss is the Pollen Puff. Well, you don't have the sleep option, but you'll have more damage mitigation and a better redirection move with Follow Me on the Clefairy, and still have that healing ability with the Heal Pulse. So those are two other moves that it's using. And for Pokemon that are like teams that maybe have like a smaller like setup mode, it's really great to help with that, or even just to allow some of your Pokemon like an extra life. Play it next to your Ogerpon, get it back to full health, and your Sturdy's back intact. It's not like you can't use it after it's been used once. So those are just some options, or even specifically for the Terapagos, getting your Terra Shell back and just being able to play the game, slow the pace of the game down that way. The other redirector, and I think this is maybe both are C's, but I think like Clefairy, if I have to pick one, I'd lean B on Clefairy.
I'd also lean Clefairy.
Yeah, Volcarona, we saw this. I think this is another one of those right place, right time Pokemon, with Zamazenta being great. With there is a Koraidon team that is on the rise. I don't think we're going to see it do well in Los Angeles. I do think we will see a variation of the Koraidon team at NAIC, and being a fire type with Flame Body that can redirect, that can also be a setup mon and do some good damage, and also provide some speed pressure after clicking arguably the best setup move in the game in Quiver Dance. That's best setup move that is Geomancy. It's pretty good. There's a lot of good things going for it. If you're running a team that has a clear-cut Zamazenta weakness or a clear-cut Koraidon weakness, I think that try out Volcarona and see where you're feeling with it. I think it could be really cool to help be the 6 mon that patches that bad matchup against these fighting type restricteds.
Yeah, I think Volcarona is cool. I think you hit a lot of the points on it. Um, it does have a little bit of like 4 move slot syndrome, to where
Oh,
you really
definitely.
want to be running Rage Powder, Quiver Dance, Fire Move, and then it's like I really would love a coverage move here, so that when Pelipper is on the field, I'm not doing nothing. Um, its bug typing is also not the most helpful thing in the world, because
No.
it adds a lot of weaknesses, like to that fire type move from Koraidon, like to those flying type moves from Pelipper, and like the rock type from Ogerpon Quarterstone is obviously not something you want to see on the other side of the field.
Absolutely
Um,
not. Even like the Chi-Yu is rough.
yeah,
Because it's neutral damage, and if you aren't resisting Chi-Yu, you're not living Chi-Yu.
yeah, it's got really great special defensive stats. I like Volcarona quite a bit, but I think that it doesn't really match up to what the rest of the format has to offer, especially in terms of redirection. When are you going to use this over Mugis? When are you going to use this over Clef or the Ogre Ponds? It's very, very specific.
So the team that did run it in Santiago ran it with Clefairy, and it was a double setup team where you had the Covert Cloak, Calm Mind, Terapagos, with Clefairy as your redirect and support, and then Volcarona was there as it was Protect, Quiver Dance. I believe it was Flamethrower over Heat Wave, and then I can't remember what the coverage move was, but it was there where against these Zamazenta teams, you went, or the Koraidon teams, you went and you set up your Quiver Dance, and then you went to town with the Flamethrower or your coverage move. I believe it might have been Terra Blast, Terra Fairy, because I know
Yeah,
that was the common set in Regulation F with it, and I think it was a very similar set there. And so, like, on that sort of team, it definitely made sense. And maybe on different teams, when people start like testing a little more with it, we might start seeing other variations of like, okay, I'm going to be Rage Powder with like Heat Wave, or even Rage Powder with Overheat, and just have that one single nuke move. Let's actually just do a quick little calc with the Volcarona. This is a more bulky set. Also gets Fiery Dance, which is a super cool move. But let's see how much that Overheat is doing into Zama. Okay, well that's how much do you need? I'm seeing like a Timid. Yeah, I think you need to be modest. That's sad.
yeah. It's I don't think Volcarona is as it as
Oh
you
no.
know.
Oh no. Okay, I just looked at if you are 252 modest against the 252 100 special defense Zamazenta, it's only Overheat is only an 18.8% chance to Oko. That's bad.
Yeah,
That
it's not great.
yeah, that makes me sad. That just ruined that for me. I think it's still a C
Yeah,
tier, but I was like about to talk myself into maybe it's B, and no,
yeah.
it's not B.
I think you're crazy. I would prefer a lot of these other Pokemon in C and B over Volcarona, but
That's fair.
yeah. I don't know how I feel about Volk. I don't think it's very great.
I think it's definitely again it's a right place right time on it'll have it I think it's going to be something where you'll see a handful of them again, maybe not in LA, but come like NAIC, maybe even World, we might see it like pop like a handful of them pop up in day 2, which I think is going to be interesting. Whether they're going to spread out and be on different teams other than the Terapagos team, who can say? Um, are there any Pokemon that aren't here that should be here? And are there any ones that you would like to talk about before we sign off?
Not really. Not off the top of my head. I
I'm
think
just doing a final look see. Yeah, I think
yeah.
I think that's everything.
I think
That's like
everything is decently counted for.
yeah.
I think that like any wide guard user could potentially be a C tier Pokemon right now.
Yeah, I think there's like you can argue for like maybe if like there's like a few other like sweet like other like bulky setters like sweet like tailwind setters like Suicune, with like the tailwind snarl could be super interesting. But like yeah, I think this is where it's at. On the top end, like I'd say like SAB, we are like there aren't as many mons, but all of these Pokemon are so splashable and can be ran on everything. And then of course Incineroar. And when you get down to C tier, that's when you get to see like a lot of really fun Pokemon that can specifically be splashed onto different archetypes to play a very key role for that team. So yeah, use these Pokemon. If there's one that you think we forgot about, let us know. Let us know if you think our ratings are good, if Pokemon are too high, too low, or if we missed one of your favorites for Regulation G so far. And with that,
yeah, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. Like Angelo said, leave us comments down below letting us know what was very wrong in our brains when we said Pelipper was high A tier.
Listen, like we are like not even like weekly therapy can tell you what's going with that.
Make sure you guys come join the community Discord. Talk to us all about the fun, non-restricted and restricted Pokemon. What fun niche Pokemon you're finding to stick next to what niche restricted. Go up and follow the Twitter at LR Lessons. Always, putting out all the content warnings that we have going on. Letting you guys know what's coming out for the YouTube channel. We got a lot going on right now between draft and the Littleroot record and Carter's Genlocks and hopefully laddering again soon. So yeah, and then go check out the community Discord supporters links and the Patreon supporters links as well. Shout out to Johnny Bravo Sr. and Papa Swish for your support over on Patreon, and Smeargle for your support over on Discord. With that, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you all next time. Peace.
Bye, everyone.